The Queen of Galaxies ruled over hundreds of star systems. Her name alone made warlords tremble and fleets surrender. It was said that her eyes could make even suns flicker with fear. No one dared to speak to her unless spoken to first. No one dared to meet her gaze. In her floating palace built from crystal and black steel, she sat on a throne that overlooked the endless stars. Every planet, every race, every soldier served her word as law. The galaxy was peaceful, but only because everyone feared her. On the outer edge of her empire, far from the shining capital, there was a small, old space station called Epsilon 9. It was dirty, cold, and forgotten. There worked a human janitor named Daniel. He was a single father who came from Earth long ago, hoping for a better life. Life was hard here. The pay was small, the hours long, but he stayed because of his daughter, Lily. Lily was a curious little girl, barely 7 years old. Her eyes were bright like twin stars, full of questions about the universe. While her father worked, she spent her time drawing stars on broken metal sheets or talking to old maintenance droids. She didn't know much about power or fear. She only knew kindness. One day, the quiet of Epsilon 9 was broken by a sound that shook the metal floors. The alarms echoed through the halls. Everyone stopped working. The sky outside the windows turned gold and violet as a massive ship appeared, bigger than the entire station. It was the royal flagship of the Queen of Galaxies. People screamed and ran to hide. Officers stood frozen. Even the commander of the station dropped to his knees, trembling. No one expected the Queen herself to come here. Why would she visit such a poor and forgotten place? Daniel pulled Lily close and whispered, "Stay with me. Don't talk. Don't move." The air grew heavy as the Queen entered the station. Her royal guards marched ahead, their armor glowing like fire. Behind them came the Queen herself, tall, elegant, and terrifying. Her long cloak shimmered like the night sky, and a crown of light floated above her head. Her face was calm, but her presence made the air colder. Everyone knelt. Every voice went silent. Daniel tried to kneel too, but Lily tugged at his arm. "Daddy, who is she?" she whispered. "Quiet," he said quickly. "That's the Queen! Don't even look at her!" But Lily didn't understand fear the way adults did. She peeked from behind her father's arm and saw the Queen walking slowly across the hall. Her steps echoed like thunder. The Queen's eyes, bright and sharp, scanned the room. Suddenly a tool slipped from Lily's small hands and hit the metal floor with a loud clang. The sound cut through the silence. Every soldier froze. Every alien servant looked up in horror. The Queen stopped walking, her gaze turned toward the sound. The crowd parted, revealing the small human child standing beside a bucket and mop. Daniel's heart stopped. He tried to pull Lily back, whispering, "No, no, no, stay behind me." But it was too late. The Queen looked directly at Lily. The room felt like it had no air. Time itself seemed to stop. Everyone waited for the Queen to shout or order punishment or worse. Instead, she spoke softly. "A human child?" Her voice was cold yet curious. Lily blinked, clutching the rag in her small hand. She didn't bow. She didn't run. She just looked up and said, "Hello?" The guards gasped. One of them raised his weapon, but the Queen lifted her hand slightly. "Stop," she ordered. The hall was so quiet that even the hum of the engines faded away. The Queen stepped closer, her long cloak gliding behind her like smoke. She stood before the child, staring at her for a long moment. "You are not afraid?" Lily shook her head. "You look sad," she said softly. The Queen's eyes widened, just for a second. No one had spoken to her like that in centuries. Not even her own council dared to say such words. Daniel fell to his knees, begging, "Please, my Queen. She's just a child. Forgive her, I beg you." But the Queen said nothing. She only looked down at Lily again, then slowly turned away. "Interesting," she whispered. Then she walked back toward her ship. Everyone watched in silence as the doors closed and the royal guards followed her. The room filled with relief and confusion. No one had died. No one was punished. The Queen had simply left, but before she disappeared into the light, she turned once more and looked at Lily. For the first time in history, the Queen of Galaxies, feared by millions, smiled. The story of what happened on Epsilon 9 spread across the station like fire. People whispered in fear and wonder. No one had ever spoken to the Queen of Galaxies and lived. Some said the human child would vanish in the night, taken by the Queen's guards. Others said the Queen's silence meant she was planning something terrible, but nothing happened. The next day, her royal ship still floated above the station like a dark moon, its engines quiet, its lights burning blue against the void. The Queen had not left. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He kept his daughter close, worried the royal soldiers might come for her. But Lily slept peacefully, holding her father's old jacket like a blanket. She wasn't afraid. In the morning, a deep voice echoed through the station. By order of Her Majesty, the Queen of Galaxies, let the human child be brought to her throne. The whole station went silent. Workers froze, engineers dropped their tools, and soldiers exchanged fearful looks. No one dared to refuse an order from the Queen. Daniel's heart pounded. "No," he whispered. "They can't take her." But the guards were already marching down the hall, their armor glowing with golden light. Daniel tried to stand in front of Lily, his hands shaking. "Please," he said. "She's just a child. She doesn't understand." One of the guards, a tall alien with skin like polished stone, said, "Her Majesty has spoken. No harm will come to her. But she must come." Lily looked up at her father. "It's okay, Daddy," she said softly. She didn't look angry yesterday. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to scream, to fight, to run. But how could a single janitor stop the will of the most powerful being in the galaxy? With trembling hands, he brushed Lily's hair back and whispered, "Be brave, little star. Don't forget who you are." The doors to the Queen's chamber opened with a deep hiss. The room was massive, filled with silver light. The Queen sat high on her dark crystal throne, surrounded by guards who stood as still as statues. She didn't move when Lily entered. Her golden eyes followed the small human child as she walked across the shining floor. Lily didn't bow. She didn't even stop. She just walked until she stood in front of the throne. For a long moment, no one spoke. The Queen leaned forward slightly. "You did not kneel," she said in her calm, powerful voice. Lily tilted her head. "Should I?" A few guards shifted nervously, waiting for the Queen's anger, but it never came. Instead, the Queen asked, "Do you not fear me?" Lily looked up at her with wide, honest eyes. "You look sad. Why should I be afraid of someone who's sad?" The Queen's gaze softened. It was the first time in centuries anyone had spoken to her like that. Not as a ruler, not as a god, but as a person. "Do you know who I am?" the Queen asked quietly. "You're the Queen," Lily said. "Everyone's scared of you, but I think you just need a friend." The words hung in the air like a shockwave. The guards didn't breathe. Even the lights seemed to dim for a second. The Queen looked down at her hand, the same hand that had signed death orders, ended wars, and destroyed planets. She had ruled for so long she'd forgotten what kindness sounded like. Lily reached into her pocket and pulled out a small candy, half melted and wrapped in shiny paper. "Here," she said with a smile. "It's sweet. Daddy says candy makes sad people feel better." The Queen stared at the little gift. No one had ever dared to offer her anything without fear, without reason, without wanting something in return. Slowly, almost uncertainly, she took it. Her cold fingers brushed against the child's warm hand. For a heartbeat, something inside her shifted. When the Queen spoke again, her voice was softer. "You are strange, little human," Lily giggled. "People say that about me a lot." For the first time in centuries, the Queen smiled, just a small one, but real. Her guards looked at each other in disbelief. None of them had ever seen that before. Then the Queen said, "Leave us." The guards hesitated but obeyed. The great chamber doors closed behind them with a deep echo, leaving only the Queen and the small human child inside. The Queen stood from her throne and walked slowly to the giant window that showed the stars. "Your world." "Earth," she said. "I have never been there. You're kinder, young, small, and yet you are not afraid." Lily stepped beside her and looked out the window. "It's not about being big," she said softly. "It's about being brave." The Queen turned to look at her, truly seeing her now, not as a creature, not as a servant, but as something pure, something powerful in its innocence. She didn't know it yet, but that simple meeting would change the fate of the galaxies forever. And somewhere deep in the Queen's heart, a place long frozen by centuries of power and loneliness began to thaw. The next morning, the station buzzed with whispers. Everyone wanted to know what had happened inside the Queen's throne chamber, but no one dared to ask her directly. All they knew was that the Queen hadn't left, and the human child was still alive. Daniel sat by his workbench, unable to rest. Every time the airlock opened, his heart jumped, fearing soldiers would drag him away. Yet no one came. Instead, a royal messenger arrived, an alien with skin like glass and eyes like burning silver. Her Majesty, the messenger said in a calm, deep tone, requests the presence of the human janitor and his daughter. Daniel's hands trembled. Both of us. Yes, the Queen has made her decision. The message sounded like a sentence, but Lily just smiled. She liked the candy, Daddy. I think she wants to talk again. Daniel tried to hide his fear as he took her hand. They followed the messenger through golden corridors and entered a quiet hall, lined with glowing stones. The Queen was already there, standing beside a massive window that looked out into the endless dark. When Daniel and Lily entered, she turned slowly, her crown shimmering like a sun behind her head. Come forward, she said softly. Daniel bowed quickly. Your Majesty? He said, his voice shaking. I apologize for my daughter's silence, the Queen said gently. Her eyes were not cruel this time. You fear what you do not understand, human. But your daughter, she glanced at Lily. She sees what others cannot. Lily smiled shyly. You didn't look angry yesterday, she said. So I wasn't scared. For a moment, the Queen said nothing. Then she looked toward the stars again. There was a time, she began, when I smiled often, when laughter filled my palace. When my people sang songs of peace, her voice grew quiet. But those days are gone. Daniel listened carefully. No one in the galaxy had ever heard the Queen speak like this. She was known for her power, her silence, her perfect control, never for memories or emotion. Lily tilted her head. Why did they stop singing? The Queen turned her eyes toward her. In them, for the first time, was something fragile. Because of loss, she said simply. Because I lost someone I could never replace. She waved her hand and a small light floated into the air between them. It shaped itself into a glowing image. A young alien child with bright eyes and a crown of tiny stars. Daniel gasped softly. The child looked just like the Queen. This was my daughter, the Queen whispered. She died long ago. During a war I began, a war I could never end. Her voice trembled slightly, the way a dying star flickers before fading. I buried my heart that day. I swore never to feel again. To rule only with strength, never mercy. Lily stepped closer, her small hand reaching out toward the hologram. She looks happy, she said. She looks like she loved you. The Queen blinked. No one had spoken to her that way. Not her generals, not her advisors, not anyone in centuries. I loved her, the Queen said softly. And I destroyed everything because of that love. Lily's voice was gentle. Then maybe you should love again. Maybe that's what she'd want. Daniel froze, terrified at his daughter's boldness, but the Queen didn't react with anger. She just looked at Lily, eyes wide, as if the child's words had pierced through armor thicker than steel. The Queen walked slowly toward her throne, her long robe whispering across the floor. She sat down and looked at Daniel. You are a simple worker, human? Yes, Your Majesty, he said quickly. A janitor. Nothing more. Yet your child carries more wisdom than most kings, the Queen said. Tell me, how do you teach such courage? Daniel hesitated. I didn't, he admitted. She just sees the world differently. She believes everyone can be good if someone gives them a chance. The Queen's gaze softened again. A dangerous belief, she murmured. But perhaps a true one. Lily stepped closer to her. You're not bad, she said. You're just lonely. The words hit harder than any weapon. The Queen's breath caught, and for the first time in ages, her perfect control slipped. A single tear, bright like liquid light, fell from her eye. No one spoke. Not even Daniel dared to breathe. The Queen stood, turning away quickly. Leave now, she said, her voice shaking. Before I change my mind. Daniel bowed, pulling Lily gently toward the exit. But before they left, the Queen said softly, Human child. Lily turned back. The Queen looked at her and said, almost in a whisper, Thank you. For reminding me that I still have a heart. The doors closed behind them with a low hum. Daniel knelt down beside his daughter. Lily, he whispered, what did you say to her? Lily smiled. I just told the truth, Daddy. Far above the station, the Queen of Galaxies stood alone by her window again. But this time she wasn't staring into the stars with anger or pride, for the first time in centuries. She looked up with hope. Across the galaxy, whispers began to spread like shooting stars. No one knew how it started, but within days every corner of the Queen's empire was talking about it. The queen spoke to a human child. She smiled. The human girl offered her a gift. At first, people didn't believe it. The Queen of Galaxies, the same ruler who turned planets to ash for disobedience, smiling at a child. Impossible. But the rumor grew louder. In royal courts, alien nobles whispered in fear. In shadowed cantinas, smugglers made bets on whether the human child was even real. Some claimed she was a new kind of weapon. Others believed she was a messenger from the stars. On the planet Vereen, a warlord slammed his fist on the table. If the queen grows soft, he hissed, her empire will fall. Humanity will poison her rule. Across light years, another general sneered. Humans are insects, yet one of them has touched the heart of a god. That makes them dangerous. The galaxy began to shift. Empires built on fear started to shake under the weight of one child's kindness. Meanwhile, on the lonely station Epsilon 9, Daniel tried to understand what was happening. His daughter had become the center of a story larger than life itself. Soldiers watched their every move now. Servants whispered and bowed as they passed. For the first time, the janitor felt what it meant to stand in the shadow of power. But Lily didn't notice the fear. She still played in the hallways, laughing at droids and leaving little drawings on the cold walls. Her drawings weren't of stars or ships anymore. They were of a tall woman with a shining crown and a smile that looked almost gentle. One evening, as Daniel finished his work, a royal messenger approached. Her Majesty requests your presence, he said. Daniel's heart sank. Again? Yes, the guard replied. She wishes to see the child. When they entered the throne chamber, the queen was sitting in silence. The golden lights around her flickered softly. She didn't look as cold as before. When Lily ran forward and smiled, the queen didn't stop her. You have caused quite a storm, little one, the queen said. Do you know that across the stars, rulers are arguing because of you? Lily tilted her head. Why? The queen sighed. Because they cannot understand how someone so small can move the heart of someone they fear. Lily thought for a moment. Maybe they're scared too. The queen smiled faintly. Perhaps. She walked closer to the window where thousands of stars glimmered. Do you know, child, that once the galaxy was filled with light? Before wars, before fear, before I became what I am. Lily looked at her reflection in the glass. You can make it light again, she said. The queen turned toward her. You speak as if it is simple. It is, Lily said softly. Just be kind. People will follow if you show them how. Daniel felt his throat tighten. His daughter's words were so innocent, so impossibly bold. But the queen didn't grow angry. She simply stood still, as if the child's voice carried an ancient truth she'd forgotten. Later that night, the queen stood alone in her private chamber. She touched the small candy wrapper that Lily had given her days before. It was wrinkled and old, but she kept it beside her crown. It reminded her of something she'd once known, something fragile and warm. Her chief advisor, a tall alien with black scales, entered quietly. My queen, he said, there are whispers among the High Council. They say you have grown weak. The queen didn't look at him. Let them whisper. They plan to question your rule, he warned. Some speak of rebellion. The queen's voice remained calm. If they believe kindness is weakness, she said softly, then they never understood strength. The advisor bowed deeply. Shall I silence them? The queen looked out into the stars. No, she said. Let them come. I will face them when the time is right. When the advisor left, the queen whispered to herself, they will learn what humanity truly is. Back in their quarters, Daniel tucked Lily into bed. You spoke to her again, he said quietly. You're not afraid of her at all, are you? Lily shook her head. She's not scary anymore. She's just sad. Daniel smiled faintly. Maybe you're helping her remember something she lost. Lily yawned and murmured. Then I'll keep reminding her until she smiles again. As she drifted off to sleep, the Queen of Galaxies stood alone in her vast palace, the stars reflecting in her eyes. She had conquered planets, ruled empires, and silenced armies. But it took one small human child to make her feel human again. And far across the universe, unseen eyes were watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The galaxy was changing, and the Queen's heart was no longer made of stone. The galaxy had grown restless. What began as whispers had now turned into open debates among the stars. The Council of Elders questioned the Queen's silence, the warlords watched with suspicion, and the royal fleet stood ready for commands that never came. It had been many cycles since the Queen last raised her voice in anger. Instead of ruling with fear, she had started listening, asking, even caring. Her advisors couldn't understand it. The woman they once called the Star Tyrant now walked her palace in quiet thought. But deep inside the grand halls of her flagship, shadows began to move. Daniel was sweeping the marble floor near the great library when he heard a faint mechanical hum. He followed the sound and found a small holographic device flickering behind a shelf. Curious, he brushed off the dust and pressed a button. A ghostly image appeared, a young alien child with glowing eyes laughing. The hologram flickered again, showing the Queen holding the same child in her arms, smiling like someone who had known love once. Daniel's heart tightened. He had never seen the Queen like that. Before he could watch more, the door behind him opened. The Queen herself stepped inside. Daniel froze, holding the hologram. Your Majesty, I didn't mean but she raised a hand, her expression unreadable. You found her, she said softly. Daniel looked confused. Your daughter? The Queen nodded slowly, her eyes distant. Her name was Liara. She was the light of my world. She stepped forward, touching the hologram's faint glow. They took her from me. The traitors who wanted my throne. I destroyed entire planets in my rage, but it did not bring her back. When her laughter died, so did my heart. Her voice trembled for the first time since Daniel had met her. I built this empire to protect her memory, but in doing so I became the monster she would have feared. Daniel placed the hologram gently on the table. She would not want you to stay that monster, Your Majesty, he said quietly. You have the chance to be what she believed you were. The Queen turned toward him. And you, a janitor, would tell a queen how to rule? Daniel met her gaze bravely. No, he said softly. But a father knows the pain of losing what he loves. That pain can destroy you, or teach you. For a moment the Queen said nothing. Then unexpectedly she smiled faintly. You speak as your daughter does, she murmured. Perhaps humans are more dangerous than I thought. Not with weapons, but with truth. That night, as Lily played in the palace gardens, she noticed something strange. Figures in dark armor moving silently between the shadows. Their faces were covered, their insignia hidden. They weren't the Queen's royal guards. She ran inside to find her father. Daddy, there are scary people outside, she whispered. Before Daniel could answer, a loud alarm filled the hall. Red lights flashed. The palace trembled as explosions echoed in the distance. The Queen's guards rushed through the corridors. One shouted, We are under attack. Infiltrators from the outer council. Daniel grabbed Lily's hand. Stay close to me. The Queen appeared at the top of the grand staircase, her cloak flowing behind her like a storm. Seal the lower decks, she commanded. Her voice had returned to its full power, calm, fierce, unstoppable. But as her guards obeyed, one of the attackers stepped into view. His armor was black, his eyes burning red. You've grown weak, Majesty, he hissed. The galaxy will not kneel to mercy. The Queen raised her hand and the air itself seemed to tremble. You dare bring war into my house? A burst of light erupted from her palm, sending the assassin flying across the hall. Yet more shadows poured in, their energy weapons blazing. Daniel pulled Lily behind a pillar, shielding her with his body. Don't look, sweetheart. But Lily refused to hide. She peeked out and saw the Queen standing alone, facing an army. Her crown glowed brighter than the stars. Each step she took shook the ground, but her expression was no longer one of hatred. It was of resolve. With a wave of her hand, she summoned a barrier of pure light protecting Daniel and Lily. Stay behind me, she said without turning. No harm will come to you. Lily's voice trembled. Why are they fighting you? The Queen's answer was quiet yet heavy with pain. Because they fear what I am becoming. The battle raged until the palace was filled with smoke and silence. The Queen stood among fallen enemies, her eyes glowing softly. She was wounded, but she didn't fall. Daniel ran to her side. You're hurt. She shook her head. It's nothing. Then she looked at Lily, who clung to her father's arm. They came for me, but they would have destroyed you too, and that I could never allow. As she knelt before the child, the stars outside seemed to brighten. For the first time, the Queen realized something she hadn't in centuries. Power could protect, but love could save. She looked at Daniel and whispered, "The shadows of my past will return again, but this time I will not face them alone." And far above the burning skies, unseen fleets gathered, armies preparing for a war that would decide the heart of the galaxy itself. The battle on the Queen's Palace world had ended, but peace did not return. The smoke cleared and silence fell, but it was the kind of silence that came before a storm. Across the galaxy, messages were being sent. Fleets were being armed, and a council of ancient powers gathered in secret. They were the High Lords of the Outer Worlds, rulers who had feared the Queen's strength for centuries. Now they saw her new compassion as weakness. "The Queen has fallen," said one of them, a tall creature with eyes like frozen fire. "She listens to a human child, a fragile species from a dying world. She is no longer fit to rule," another lord hissed. "We cannot allow love to poison power. The galaxy must be ruled by fear again." And so they began to prepare their greatest fleet, thousands of warships powered by suns, marching toward the Queen's homeworld. Their goal was simple: destroy her and burn every planet that had dared to believe in peace. On Epsilon 9, Daniel and Lily sat quietly in their small quarters. The Queen had ordered them to remain under her protection, but Daniel could see the worry in her golden eyes each time she passed. Lily drew stars on a small datapad, humming softly. "Daddy," she said, "why do they hate her?" Daniel sighed. "Because she changed, sweetheart. People who live in darkness don't like the light." Lily looked up. "Then we'll help her keep the light on." Daniel smiled, trying to hide the fear in his chest. Moments later, alarms rang through the station. The air shook and the sky outside filled with moving lights, warships. Thousands of them. The Queen appeared on the balcony, her silver armor gleaming. The galaxy's most powerful fleets were coming for her, but instead of fear, her face held calm strength. "Send a message," she ordered, "to every world under my banner. Tell them the Queen does not hide." Her generals hesitated. "Majesty, the enemy is too strong. We must retreat to the inner systems." The Queen's eyes burned like twin suns. "If I run now, the galaxy will never believe in peace again." Daniel and Lily stood beside the window, watching as the sky turned into fire. The Queen's fleet, though smaller, moved with perfect discipline. Thousands of ships aligned behind her flagship, forming a shield wall of light. "Daddy," Lily whispered, "is she going to fight?" "Yes," Daniel said, "but not like before." On the bridge of her ship, the Queen stood tall, her hands resting on the command crystal. Around her, the galaxy stretched out like an ocean of stars. She could see the enemy armada approaching, a storm of steel and fire. Her advisors begged her to strike first, to unleash the weapons that had once wiped out entire worlds. But she shook her head. "No," she said. "Not this time. This war will not be fought in anger. It will be fought for hope." When the enemy fleet arrived, their leader appeared on the holographic screen, a cold-eyed alien wrapped in armor of shadows. "You have betrayed what you were," he said. "The galaxy does not need mercy. It needs control." The Queen's voice was steady. "Then you do not understand control. True power is not in fear. It is in choice," the alien laughed. "You will die with your humans, then." "Perhaps," the Queen said. "But I will die free." The first wave hit like thunder. Explosions rippled across the void. Energy beams cut through the darkness, shaking entire moons. The Queen's ships held their line, shields blazing blue. But the enemy's numbers were endless. Inside the command center, Daniel helped seal the bulkheads while Lily ran to the viewing deck. "She's losing," Lily cried. "We have to do something." Daniel grabbed her shoulders. "There's nothing we can—" But before he could finish, the Queen's voice echoed through every speaker. "People of the galaxy," she said, "I once ruled through fear. I destroyed worlds to keep peace. But I was wrong. A child showed me that even the smallest kindness can change the stars." Her words reached every ship, every planet, every frightened heart. "If you believe in something greater than fear, stand with me now." All across the galaxy, small rebel ships began to move. Captains who had once served in silence now turned their vessels around. Old enemies lowered their guns. The Queen's courage was spreading like light across the darkness. The battle raged on, but the tide began to turn. Fleets that had once feared her now fought for her. On her bridge, the Queen's armor cracked, glowing with energy. She looked down at the small candy wrapper tied around her wrist, Lily's gift. Her voice softened. For you, little human. For the future you reminded me of. With a final command, she released the power of her ship's core, a burst of light so strong it blinded the stars. The enemy fleet shattered under the brilliance. The battle was over. When silence returned, Daniel held Lily close. Outside, the stars glowed brighter than ever. The Queen's voice came through the speakers one last time, gentle and proud. The galaxy is not mine to rule anymore. It belongs to those brave enough to care. And somewhere beyond the smoke and starlight, the Queen of Galaxies looked toward Earth's distant sun and smiled. The human child had reminded her of something no power could ever replace: hope. The war was over. The galaxy that once trembled in fear now floated in silence. Smoke drifted through space where fleets had burned, and the stars themselves seemed to shimmer with relief. For the first time in centuries, there was peace. Not the kind created by force, but the kind born from courage. The Queen of Galaxies stood on the bridge of her damaged flagship. Her armor was cracked, her crown dimmed, but her eyes still burned with golden light. Around her, engineers hurried to repair the systems while medics treated the wounded. Yet the Queen's focus was far beyond the ship, on the stars, on what came next. Daniel and Lily entered quietly. The human janitor and his small daughter looked out of place among the alien crew, yet everyone moved aside with respect. The Queen turned, and when she saw them, something warm softened her face. You should be safe now, she said. The fleets have fallen back. The galaxy will need time to heal. Daniel bowed slightly. It wasn't just your battle, Your Majesty. You fought for all of us. The Queen smiled faintly. No, she said softly. It was your daughter who fought for us all. I only followed her light. Lily blushed and hid behind her father. I didn't do anything, she said shyly. I just wanted everyone to stop being mean. The Queen knelt down before her, the once feared ruler of 1,000 worlds, bowing her head to a little human child. And because you wanted that, she said gently, a galaxy remembered how to feel again. Outside the window, fleets that had once been enemies now floated side by side. Human ships from distant colonies sent messages of peace. Even the outer worlds, once ruled by cruelty, lowered their flags in surrender. The Queen's act of mercy had changed them more than any war could, but peace is never without price. The Queen's ship had taken damage beyond repair. Her body too had suffered. Energy burns along her arms glowed faintly, a reminder of the final light she unleashed. Daniel saw the pain behind her calm expression. You're hurt, he said quietly. She shook her head. I am fading, she admitted. The power I released has bound itself to the stars. My time as ruler has ended. Lily's eyes filled with tears. You can't go. You're my friend. The Queen smiled and touched Lily's cheek. I will not leave you. Not truly. As long as kindness exists, I will live in it. The universe does not need a queen anymore. It needs hearts like yours. Lily held the Queen's hand tightly. Then promise me you won't forget us. The Queen looked out toward the distant sun of Earth. I promise, she said. Every sunrise your people see, every star that shines upon your world. Remember, it is my promise kept. Days passed, and the galaxy began to rebuild. Worlds once divided began to trade again. The old councils were dissolved, and in their place rose a new alliance. A union led not by power, but by understanding. At the center of it all stood a new monument, a tall spire of silver glowing faintly with golden veins. It was called the Beacon of Hope, and at its base were two figures carved in crystal, a mighty queen and a small human child holding her hand. Daniel and Lily attended its unveiling on the Queen's homeworld. Crowds of countless species gathered, ships flew overhead, painting the sky with trails of light. The new leader spoke of unity, of courage, and of the small moment that changed history, when a child offered a candy to the most feared ruler in the stars. Lily stood beside her father, holding the Queen's old crown, now dim but beautiful. Do you think she's watching us, Daddy? She asked softly. Daniel smiled, looking up at the endless galaxy above. I think she's watching everyone. He placed the crown on the monument's pedestal. She kept her promise. As the ceremony ended, Lily walked to the edge of the platform and looked up at the sky. A single beam of golden light shot across the heavens, brighter than the others. It wasn't a star, it was something more. Something alive, Lily whispered, goodbye, my friend, and smiled. Far beyond the edge of known space, among the nebulae and dying suns, the Queen's essence drifted, no longer bound by throne or form. She had become part of the galaxy itself, a guardian made of light and memory. Her voice echoed through the stars, soft and eternal. Remember, humanity, strength is not in the hands that command, but in the hearts that care. And somewhere deep in that infinite sky, two new stars burned side by side, one golden, one blue, forever shining as a promise between a queen and a child. The story of the Queen of Galaxies and the human janitor's daughter would be told for generations. It began with fear and ended with love. A human child changed the heart of the universe, and the universe never forgot.